Freedom, freedom, freedom over fame. Freedom over cycle stays the same.
Welcome. First of all, welcome. This is Unsolicited Perspectives, and I'm your host, Bruce Anthony. Thank you for listening and watching wherever you get your podcasts and video podcasts. Subscribe, share, like, comment, and rate us. You can find us on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch at unsolicited_perspectives. You can find us on Twitter and TikTok at unsolicited_PER. Watch us live now. Watch us live every Thursday night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on Twitch and YouTube. Our audience continues to grow with each and every episode, and I humbly thank you.
On today's episode, it's the Sibling Happy Hour with my sis. We're talking ChatGPT, funny videos, Black and Asian American relations, and oh yeah, we're going to talk about our old vacations from back in our youth. But first things first. What up, sis?
What up, brother?
How you feeling today?
I'm feeling fantastic, and I'll tell you why. It is Black History Month.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And that's my favorite time of year.
The shortest month of the year.
It's the shortest month of the year, but the most impactful. And as always, Beyonce has decided to just bring chaos into our lives by announcing her new world tour. So everybody's trying to figure out how they're going to come up with the money. And I saw a hilarious meme. It was that scene and Set It Off where Stoney, she needed that money and she had to sleep with her boss. She in a bind, Nate. And that's, hey, you got to get that money for that the best way you can.
Right. Oh, man. All
Damn
right.
it.
So our brother sent us something that was relatively funny, and you wanted to talk about that. So
I absolutely did.
So you want to lay it out what it was that he sent us?
So, in Portsmouth, Virginia, a high school, Churchland High School, is unfortunately, they are done for the season. They have forfeited the rest of the season. They have forfeited the rest of the season. And the reason why is because for some reason, 22-year-old Arlisha Boykins, the assistant coach for the girls' junior varsity basketball team, decided to impersonate a player. She put on that player's jersey. She suited up, bro. She suited up and she played a game. And let me tell you something. Homegirl didn't just play. I mean, she was balling on them kids. And that's ridiculous. Okay.
Oh.
Fadeaway jumpers. I mean, it was absolutely ridiculous. I don't know whose idea it was. I don't know why between her, she's fired. The head coach is also fired. Why between the two of them, they thought that this was a good idea. The girl she impersonated was actually out of town because I guess she also plays in a league outside of school. And so she was at a game for that. And I don't know. Listen, but it was the way she was balling on the kids. Like, that's the part. Like, if you're going to do it because you need, maybe y'all didn't have enough players and you didn't want to forfeit the game. Okay.
Right.
But you had to ball on them kids like that. Those are kids. This is JV. Those are 13, 14-year-old girls. And she ain't had to cross them up and break their ankles like that. I don't know if anybody has seen the video, but it is hilarious. There is several clips out there. But honestly, this is not the first time that this has happened. I don't know if y'all seen that movie 17 Again. where the guy wakes up and suddenly he's 17 again, and he goes back to high school and he tries to relive his basketball glory days and try to turn his life out different or whatever. But apparently this has happened before. And there was a guy who falsified, I think he was like 25.
Yep, that happened somewhere in the South, right?
Mm-hmm. Falsified school records to join a team. Another guy, I think he was 22. You know, I mean, a lot of them look like high school seniors when you're still that young, you're in your early 20s. Again, falsified records so that he could play high school and hopefully get scouted, and but guys, hey, these are kids y'all are playing against. Y'all are grown people, and it's despicable, and it's awful.
Oh, man. So I often have dreams of me being back in high school. Matter of fact, I think I had one like a couple of weeks ago that I went back to high school, but I'm the age I am now, but I'm a senior, but I was hooping. Like I was hooping. And I was like, oh man, I wish this could have been the way. Like I'm out here dropping 30, 40 points in my dream. But I don't want to go back and actually go play. Like that's
no.
I grew up.
Yeah. You grew up.
I mean, that's what you hope to do at a certain point in time, is to grow up and to not try to relive your high school years. But some people never grow up and outlive trying to relive their high school years. I think that's a main reason why there's an uptick in like the last 10 or 15 years. And there's probably more back in the day that just didn't get out in public of these teachers, more specifically the female teachers, getting with these high school boys. And it's like,
yes.
Are you trying to relive your high school years all over again, or try to make up for what you didn't experience in high school?
Right. I mean, I'm not going to name no names.
I mean, name them. Look.
I'm not going to name no names.
Okay.
But when I was in high school, we had a couple of young teachers.
Right.
And I distinctly remember making sure that my peers knew those are grown ass men. I get it. They just got out of college. They're in their early 20s, okay. But I mean, we are still children. Like that's right. It is illegal. So like, I mean, I get it. I get it to a certain extent. I've never tried to relive my high school years because I don't really remember them. And I also didn't go to school a lot. But I understand other people who like peaked in high school and like, that's it. I mean, but you peaked in high school because you decided that you peaked in high school. Right. Like you decided not to do anything else. You decided to be Golden Jet and leave it at that.
Not Golden Jet. For all y'all who don't know who Golden Jet is, that was Kevin Hart's character in Central Intelligence. Central Intelligence with Dwayne and Rock Johnson, one of like 17,000 movies that they've done together, but that's neither here nor there.
They're best friends, and I also love that friendship. It's hilarious visually, and it's also hilarious when they joke on each other.
Are they best friends, or are they friends of convenience?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know if they actually hang out outside of doing press and films together. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
Maybe they do. But they have a great chemistry, and just visually it's funny because The Rock is huge and Kevin is so small, and it's just very funny visually seeing them together. Yeah.
So speaking of school,
yes,
I read an article earlier today. I think it was in MSNBC about ChatGPT.
GPT.
That's what I said, GPT. You always think I say B. You always think like I say laptop, but you always say that I say laptop, and I don't. I say laptop.
You say laptop.
I say laptop. Chat GP.
It stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. Now, what that specific phrase means, I don't know because I'm not a computer programmer.
No.
I also don't like AI. I'm Black and over 35, so I do not trust technology in general, or healthcare, or the government, or the media.
Time out. I'm Black and over 35, and I trust technology is going to take us over anyway. So I use as much as I can.
That's my point.
Yeah.
That it's on some Skynet stuff, and the rise of the machines. So not typically, but yes, you saw this about Chat GPT, BBD,
ABC, the East Coast family. No. But kids, what it'll do is you could type it up. You could type it up like conversationally. And I tested it out earlier today. And I was like, hey, write me a report on integration in America. And it started to write out a very, very detailed report. Now, back in my day, when we wanted to cheat on writing a paper, we would just basically plagiarize, and we put a lot of footnotes and endnotes in it to try and cover up.
It's not plagiarizing because you cited your sources.
I cited a lot of sources.
Yeah.
A lot of sources. Sometimes it was more sources being cited than Bruce Anthony's own personal words in that essay. But the kids are using it to write these papers, and the teachers is like, there's no real way we can catch them by writing it because the AI is literally writing it. Think Grammarly.
Yeah.
But on steroids.
Yeah.
Grammarly is Kevin Hart. ChatGPT is The Rock.
That is a fantastic analogy. Yes.
So it is hyped to the max. And it's just, kids are getting away with it. And I'm like, hey, you should have known technology was going to catch up. It got to the point where technology was catching up, helping the teachers, because I was one of those first people in college where they could enter in your paper through a database, and that database would search to see if there were elements of that paper that had been plagiarized. And I was like, oh, the game done changed. I can't even just like straight plagiarize anymore. I got to come up with creative ways to plagiarize. Now these kids is just like, look, I don't need to read the book. I don't need to go to the library. I don't even think kids is going to the library anymore. I don't know what they do for research anymore. They definitely not doing it.
I think you were in college when we were using JSTOR and EBSCOhost and peer-reviewed. You were still doing books? I
was still using the Dewey Decimal System.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's changed.
Yeah,
it's changed.
That 4 age difference between me and you, I think that's, like I was in college when Napster first came out.
Oh.
And other people talk about, I was in college when LimeWire, because I was out. I was like, I was kind of like out of college by then. Like I was definitely using them. I know what you're talking about. But
I had an iPod in college.
Yeah, no.
An iPod, which I found the other day, but that's beside the point. So I mean,
is Lisa and the Coke Jam on there?
What?
I know it's got to be some old tracks on there.
You know what was on there? It's the first song that usually plays on the Quiet Storm. It's is it? I can't remember the name of it, but it's
I know the song you're talking about. There's somebody that's going to be listening or watching this episode.
Yeah.
And because I used to play it during the cool down phase of my fitness classes back in the day.
I love that.
And she was like, I know this song. And she's a fan.
Blackness.
Yeah.
It's a song by Art of Blackness. Yeah. Yes.
Not Sounds of Blackness. Not Sounds of Blackness. Right. Yes. But back to the kids.
So I actually thought it would be a good idea to interview Chat GPT about this particular subject.
Okay.
And get the chatbot's thoughts on it. So I asked it a series of questions about it. It gave me some very thoughtful answers.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't have a personal opinion, obviously, because it's an AI. Well, first I asked it what an AI is, and it said that there are two types of AI. There is a narrow or weak AI, which is designed to perform specific tasks.
Grammarly.
Yes, and a general or strong AI, which is designed to perform an intellectual task that a human can. So we don't have that yet. I asked it, are you narrow or are you general? And it said it is a narrow or weak AI. It's designed to perform a specific task, which is respond to natural language text inputs.
That's exactly what Ultron would say.
Yes, it basically says it operates within specific or predefined parameters. So I'm like, okay, I understand what you are now.
Okay.
Sure. I was like, what are the implications of using Chat GPT as a student? And it said, well, it creates a reliance on technology. Students may be too reliant on the chat for their answers instead of developing critical thinking and problem solving skills.
Which is already a problem for this generation behind us. They can't think.
No,
you know what? Actually, in general,
agree with that.
well, in general, critical thinking is a weakness of human beings.
I think Gen Z, well, yeah, because common sense isn't that common.
Right.
But I think that I think Gen Z does think critically about a lot of things. I think they get written off as
young,
just meme-minded people, but I think that's usually what happens to the youth. The youth are typically dismissed.
This is true.
By older generations. There is an issue with the accuracy of information. Chatbot is trained in vast amounts of text. I call it chatbot because GPT, that's difficult to say. It's a mouthful. All of those letters sound the same.
I don't know, man, because Snoop was saying LBC and we was rocking with it. GPT, LBC.
Because it was
ABC.
mellifluous. It was like melodious the way he was saying it. So much problem in the LBC.
What is melodious? Is that supposed to be like melody?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Like I figured it out from the context.
Like I could say GPT. Like I could say that, but that's a lot. I'm gonna say chatbot.
I'm going to type in Chat GPT because I'm going to cheat on this test. Now, now.
No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that.
Look, I was a rapper back in the day. I don't care what nobody say. I got a whole mixtape that'll never be released.
Ever.
Never.
And I pray never. But what I did read was that the chat program, the AI program, is only pulling information up to 2021. So it's not going to have the most accurate or up-to-date information. And sometimes it gives you very eloquent answers that are just straight up wrong. So you gotta be careful.
Did Chat GPT tell you that?
Yes.
Wow.
It didn't say it in that language. That's my language.
Okay.
And also another implication is plagiarism. If a student relies solely on Chat GPT's responses and presents it as its own work, it can be considered plagiarism. Now, that's exactly the definition of plagiarism.
But how would the teachers find out? Because the chat bot is writing it in its own. It's not copying and pasting it from the internet. It's taking information in these parameters that you're giving it and then disseminating the information in its own words and its own voice.
Right. Well,
and creating original work.
OpenAI is creating or has created a program to detect AI in writing.
So AI has created a program to catch AI.
The company OpenAI has created, but of course that also is not 100% accurate, foolproof, because again, it's AI checking itself.
Right.
If the first one did a good job, the second one might not catch it.
Exactly.
So
that's what I'm trying to tell you.
It also said that students may use Chat GPT to memorize answers instead of understanding underlying concepts and ideas. So it's an encouragement of rote learning. So
which is what I did in college. So
yeah, I mean, which is what all learning is. Let's be honest. And we're talking about school as an institution, as a social institution. It is all rote learning. You learn. A lot of times they teach the test. You learn the test. You immediately dump the information out of your mind. Mm-hmm. Except I do still remember. I think it's the Pythagorean theorem: a squared plus b squared equals c squared. I don't know why I remember that. Never used it.
No,
never.
No.
So the question is, can this be used ethically by students? ChatGTP, not surprisingly, says yes, it can be used ethically by students.
Of course it did.
Students need to verify the information for accuracy. They need to avoid plagiarism. It can enhance learning as a tool to support students' learning and understanding of the subject rather than replace their own effort in critical thinking. And it can be used to provide guidance and suggestions so that students shouldn't solely rely on its responses and make their own judgment and use their own decision-making skills. I asked, how should educators approach the ethical use of ChatGTP by students? And they should educate students on responsible and ethical use of technology, encourage critical thinking and problem solving skills. I mean, it's called being a teacher. You should teach kids, foster good research habits, set clear guidelines on the ethical use of technology in the classroom. Yeah, it's called teach the kids.
Right. Teach the kids.
Teach the kids. But I think the larger question is, and I asked Chatbot what he thought of this.
Damn, how long?
I don't know why I made it an E.
How long was this?
It was only these 4 questions.
Oh,
it was only these 4 questions.
Okay. Geez.
But cheat. I used to cheat when I was in school. Kids cheat. Okay, like I already got the degree. I already got it.
Well, I go by what Dad taught us.
It's better to cheat
than to repeat.
There you go. So, so I get it. I get it. But I think the larger question of why are students just lazy?
Yeah.
Man, that might be part of it, but is there also pressure from schools and parents placed on students, which leads to academic dishonesty? Like there's a push to end homework, right? Because
look, I'm all for that because, I ain't do it anyway.
There is no work-life balance for kids. You're in school all day. I mean, it's true. You're in school all day. You come home and you still have another hour, 2 hours of more school.
Yeah, that's true.
There is no time or break in there, for leisure to just be a kid. And then also to kind of like digest the information you got to immediately do more school. Can you imagine that?
I mean, we did.
Can you imagine you get, no. I mean, in our lives now, and a lot of people live like this as adults in a corporate world. You working all day, and you come home and you work some more, right?
Dad used to do it.
And what does that lead to? Yeah. What does that lead to? Burnout.
Yeah.
Overburdened students. So what do? They're trying to find shortcuts.
Yeah.
And this is a pretty effective shortcut. So I think teachers keep on teaching. Y'all teaching, keep on teaching. Good. Good. This chatbot is not a human. It can't replace, a teacher or human knowledge. It will eventually. We will all be obsolete.
It's the rise of Skynet. I don't care what nobody say.
Yeah. We'll all be obsolete eventually. But we also need to start talking about the environment that we place these kids in, where instead of wanting to learn this information, instead of desiring knowledge, it's easier for them to just put something into an AI and hand it in. Because what? Do they feel apathetic about what they're learning? Is there too much on their plates? Right? Because now they have to have these well-rounded resumes to get into college. Like it's a lot. And so listen, if I had to go back in the day, and I was thinking about going to grad school. Hell, I might put a couple things in the chat GTP. Give me some answers real quick.
Look, as Dad said, it is better to cheat than to repeat. Kids, Don't listen to me. Do your work. All right, sis, you brought up something really interesting to me this week. You want to basically the overall general topic is Black and Asian American relationships.
Yes.
And if you pay attention to the media, or if you watch certain news organizations, they'll tell you that these two communities are at odds. And there are certain geographical areas where these communities are kind of at conflict, but also they put Asian Americans as one big pot as opposed to Korean, Chinese, Japanese, people from Taiwan, the Philippines. Like they're not all the same. So to lump them into this big
India.
India, to lump them into this to this category of Asian people and saying Blacks and Asians got beef. That's not true. That's not true.
Well, but the answer is nuanced.
The answer is always nuanced, but the overall theme that certain news organizations are portraying are not true. Like certain news organizations are trying to portray Black and Jewish people recently this past year, well, in 2022, had conflict where historically that's just not the case, right?
Again, that answer is also nuanced.
It's always nuanced, but what I'm talking about, the actual portrayal.
Yes.
The actual portrayal is not true. So
correct.
You brought up this topic and I was like, well, I got some history on that. You know me, being a history major, I got some history on this. But as usual, when you bring up the topic, I'm just going to introduce it and then let you go. And then I interject. You know, I interject.
Well, I'm interested in the history. That's sort of why I brought it up to you as a history major.
Oh, I get the lead off?
Which I shouldn't say history major. That is true, but once you get the degree, you become a historian.
Well, look, let me tell you something. Every now and then I got to read something to as my mom told me, I used to say as a little kid, I broke my remembrance.
Yeah.
I gotta refresh.
We're always so eloquent.
Well, whatever. but whatever. But I gotta, refresh my remembrance. So every now and then I gotta read something like, oh yeah, I remember that happened. Okay, so I will say historically, there have been a group of Black people and a group of Asian Americans that have consistently beefed. Consistently beef isn't the right word, but that have beefed. But it's steeped in the buzzword that we always say, white supremacy. Okay. So
it's all back to white supremacy.
So I'm going to go back and forth with the history, but I just want to lead off with the narrative that Black and Asians don't get together by starting with the reason why a particular group, Korean Americans and Black Americans, don't get together. So in the 1960s, the government did some immigration where it was a quota-based system where they let in a lot of highly skilled labor, and certain individuals were given priority as far as immigration was concerned than other people. And one of those groups of people were Korean Americans, because they were highly educated and they were typically coming from higher economic and social economic situations in Korea. So when they came here, they were expecting to live in that same lifestyle, because in Korea they're living good, they're highly educated, they're in that social economic higher echelon. But when they came here, those things don't translate like much of stuff from not America coming here. Like somebody that's a doctor in South America doesn't automatically get to become a doctor here in the U.S.
Correct.
So they were forced to basically do. This sounds like well, that doesn't seem like that bad, but it is when you're coming from a highly educated background. They were forced to be small business owners.
Take a step back
for them,
at least highly skilled labor,
right, to being a small business owner. And
Yes.
where could they buy businesses? Well, the cheapest land were in the Black communities. So they were given loans and things like that to buy property in the Black communities that during the time, especially during the 60s when this was becoming prevalent, where Black people were denied loans. So the same properties that maybe Black Americans could afford, banks weren't giving Black Americans the loans, but they were giving Korean Americans the loans. So Korean Americans were moving into these Black neighborhoods, building up stores and retail, and the rumor is that they were getting supplies cheaper and then undercutting other Black stores that were competing by offering cheaper prices, and this created conflict in the Black community. And this starts from the 60s all the way to the and I'm talking, when I say this, I'm speaking specifically in California, right?
Okay.
So once again, when I said earlier, this is geographical, this is California, right? This is what I'm talking about in California, because it leads to Letitia Harlan.
Yes.
Letitia Harlan was a young Black girl, 15 years old,
mm-hmm.
who was going to a Korean shop to get some orange juice. And she put the orange juice in her backpack. And one of the Korean owners was a lady. And she was like, "Are you stealing it?" And she was like, "No, I have money right here. I'm not stealing it." And the Korean lady confronted her. Letitia dapped her up a little bit, gave her back the orange juices, and was walking out. And the Korean shop owner shot her in the back of the head and killed her. Yes. The Korean shop owner was tried. At first, they tried to say that the store was being stuck up. They had surveillance footage that showed that she was no longer in threat, that the threat was walking away, and that she basically killed the person in cold blood. She was sentenced to, I think, 10 to 15 years or something like that. Yeah. But then the sentence was commuted, and she was given probation, and that set the community on fire because it seemed like she was getting off scot-free for murdering somebody, because it's essentially she murdered this girl. The girl wasn't stealing, and in the security footage, it showed that the girl had the money in her hand. There was 2 eyewitnesses that said that she was going to pay. This woman just killed her in cold blood and basically got away with it. And so the community was set on fire. But then was a couple of weeks later, the Rodney King officers got off, and then that's when the riots happened. And a lot of Korean businesses were destroyed. Correct. Some people would say, well, why are you destroying Korean businesses? You have to put yourself, I'm not condoning let me make this perfectly clear. I'm not condoning Black people attacking Korean businesses during this time. I don't care that you feel like they're invading your territory, because there's this thing called minority, middleman minority. And so the middleman minority exists between a dominant and subordinate groups. And society, in society, they often hold professional stuff in retail service industries like grocery markets and liquor stores. Yeah. So that's what the Koreans were. They were the middleman minority, where they were not white and would never be put in that social economic class of being white. But in the eyes of America, they were still better than Black. And Black people recognized that. But really, and also, there was during that time, media portrayed Black people as either ignorant, poor, or dangerous. Go back and look at some of the intros for any cop shows from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. The one that you always had to watch out for was that Black guy coming around the corner, right? Yeah. These themes, and it's funny because, I released the interview, the second part of the interview with the 2 Jewish Americas, and we were talking about tropes. These tropes lead people to fear or think a certain way about a group of people, some of which they've never met, or when they meet them, it doesn't matter. They had this preconceived notion of who you are. So Koreans moved into these communities and were naturally fearful because they were taught by American society to fear. So it's a common theme throughout this country. And the reason why me and my sister often bring up white supremacy, and when we say that, once again, we're not generalizing. Jay is not going to break this down for you again. We're not talking about all white people. We're talking about this societal system of America that pits different people against one another. And in this instance, Korean people were considered by American society as better than Black Americans because they pulled themselves up by the bootstraps. Never mind the fact that they came over here as intellectuals and not aristocrats, not quite to that level, but people that were high up in Korea. So they already had a heads up. So they weren't necessarily pulling themselves by the bootstraps. They came over here with money, right?
They could afford to come to America
and buy land and create a small business. Whereas Black Americans during this time, still during this time, but during this time, were being suppressed by laws. It was, banks were not giving out loans to Black people. In order for a Black person to buy a storefront like this, they had to save money. They weren't going to get no loan. They had to scratch and scrape to get that storefront. Once again, I say all of that, not defending attacking Koreans, because they, neither Blacks nor Koreans, saw the main enemy. The main enemy was white supremacy, the societal system that was putting them against each other. That's really what it was. Koreans should have been, and were, they absolutely were, upset about the fact that what they did in Korea, what they had in Korea, wasn't being recognized by Americans. We want your skill and your labor. Bring us your best, but your best is not going to be better than what we got right here, because we're not going to allow it. So that's essentially what happened. So when people talk about the conflict, they specifically talk about that. And just to give a little bit of history, there was conflict, but that conflict was created by American society. Like it wasn't, if white supremacy didn't exist and the systems in America weren't built up specifically for white men, it was true equal playing field, I don't think that there would have been any conflict between Black and Koreans in this area at that time. But that's kind of what happened. So that's a brief history lesson, and took up 10 minutes of telling you about it. So just go ahead and you go.
No, but it's good, because I didn't take notes on that. But the truth is, Black folks and Asian folks, we go back in this country.
We go way back.
We go back a ways to probably even before this, but one of the probably before this, but again, it was the late 1800s. We just got free, okay? So us making speeches and showing solidarity, that's new. Right. That's new. We just got free, okay? But you have, in 1869, Frederick Douglass speaking out on restrictions against Chinese immigration, which, shortly after, in 1882, you had the Chinese Exclusion Act, which banned Chinese immigrants from becoming U.S. citizens. 1942. President Franklin Roosevelt issued an executive order that put the Japanese Americans into internment camps.
Let's rephrase that. They weren't internment camps. They were concentration camps.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Internment camps.
You know how America loves.
Right. And you learn a little bit about this during World War II. Yeah. And I remember learning about this during this.
Spicy with language.
Right. I think I was in the 7th grade, because that's the same time I learned about the Holocaust, right? Because it's all wrapped up in the curriculum of World War II. And I was like, wait a minute. We turned around and did the same thing Germany did? Well, not quite. Well,
very, very, very close.
It's real close.
Quite. It's very similar.
And it doesn't really it's like a little blip in that curriculum. And a lot of people don't, a lot of people don't even know that. A lot of people don't know that after Pearl Harbor, we rounded up Korean Americans and threw them in concentration camps, not internment camps, concentration. But anyway, go ahead.
Yes, Japanese Americans.
Japanese Americans, excuse me.
Asian civil rights movement was inspired in part by the Black civil rights movement in the 60s. Yuri Kochiyama was a friend and ally of Malcolm X and was actually cradling his bleeding head when he was assassinated in 1965. Jesse Jackson took time away from his presidential bid to protest the killing of Vincent Chin in 1982. Like, we go Black and Asian solidarity in this country. It goes back a ways. Okay. We have been working in solidarity, but it's like you said, this history is not being told to us.
So,
right.
So speaking of, I just want to piggyback off the coalitions that were joined together in the late 60s. And this was in California, right? In the late 60s, Black and Asian activists led the Third World Liberation Front movement to establish race and ethnic studies in colleges, universities, and curriculums in California. So Black and Asian people was joining together because they saw, y'all being oppressed just like we are. Yeah, homie. Like you a little bit lighter than me, but to them you still not always. Them.
But not always.
Not always.
If you're South Asian,
right?
Not always.
Right.
You know, like, and it's important to. I think that's an important juxtaposition that I am showing you instances of solidarity. You are, and you spoke about with Korean and Black relations in California, instances of tension, right? So the relationship between the Black and Asian communities in America is that complex, right? But what's important to remember, and you talked about this, that what's the root?
What's the root?
White supremacy. And when you live in a supremacist structure, what's important to remember is that a supremacist structure is hierarchical, right? Because it relies on supremacy. Somebody's at the top, somebody's at the bottom.
Right.
So what happens around the time in the 60s, you start to, what is white supremacy seeing? They're seeing different racial groups working in solidarity for their rights. How are we going to drive a wedge? Well, let's come up with a way to differentiate good races from others that we don't want. We always don't want Black folks.
Always.
That's in white supremacy.
And Latino people.
But in white supremacy, the other side of that coin is Black people. At the other end of the spectrum is Black people. And that's just the truth. Okay?
That's the only time I'll say it's a white and Black issue.
Yes.
There's no shades of gray in that.
That is just the truth. So what do we come up with? This idea of the model minority. Okay. So you have Asian communities, not some, because again, colorism is a thing.
Yes.
It's real.
Yeah, it is.
And it's definitely real within Asian communities.
It's real everywhere.
It's real everywhere. But it's definitely real in Asian communities. They have a whole caste system. It's a mess. So you have, though, these communities buying into the idea of the model minority and really pushing assimilation into a white supremacist structure.
But they don't categorize it as a white supremacist structure. They categorize it as just American, becoming more American.
Becoming more American. But what does it mean to become more American in a way that grants you privilege?
Exactly.
It's to become white.
Well, in a way that...
or as close to white as possible.
I don't know if it's to grant you necessarily privilege. It's to not necessarily be suppressed any longer. Because I think if not directly being suppressed any longer, that inherently gives you a privilege over the suppressed. But I don't think it's the goal of assimilation is to gain a privilege. I think the goal of assimilation is I don't want to be put down anymore. I don't want to be considered an other anymore.
I think it is to gain privilege because to assimilate, to simply not be oppressed any longer is not enough of an incentive to even be an American. There has to be something about specifically being an American that makes it more advantageous to come here than it is to stay in your home country. Because like you said, there are Koreans who are doctors coming here to be small business owners.
Well, the greatest,
because
I think the greatest thing America has is salesmen, right?
Yes.
I mean,
because they have sold that American dream, baby.
Right.
They
said that the streets of America were paved with gold.
Mm-hmm.
And people
everybody
flooded here. So America has always sold itself as this beacon. And the idea of America is a great idea. The implementation of it has just been piss poor from the jump. But
no, it hasn't. It's worked very well.
I don't.
For white people.
Okay. But yes.
It has worked exactly the way it's intended to.
Generally speaking, for white people, because there are some white people out there that's like, I got it tough, and some of them
wrote it. They wrote the rules. It's working.
Let's hold on.
Precisely the way
rich white people wrote the rules.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Always remember, when we're talking about white people in a political sense, it is a very small subsection
or historical sense.
Or a historical sense of the actual white population.
Yeah, very small.
We are not talking about poor white people. We're not talking about uneducated white people. We're not talking about Jewish white people. We're not really talking about women, white women.
No.
We're talking about a real small section of white people that are at the top of that hierarchy.
It was a small group of people that were the founding fathers. It was a small group that set the rules and the parameters of the country that we live in, the parameters of the structures and institutions of the country that we live in. It was just a few. It was a few people. It was a few people, and they were wealthy.
Yeah, I think right now, though, there's this real push to, there's a real push for solidarity between Black and Asian communities. And similar to these relationships and partnerships that we had developed post-emancipation during the Civil Rights Movement, Black Lives Matter has really served as a catalyst for increased cooperation and really showing up for each other in meaningful ways. Like we are recognizing, wait a minute, if you look at our actual history, take out that white supremacist narrative of division. If you look at our actual history, we've been working in tandem.
Right. So it's not just Black Lives Matter.
Justice.
It was Black Lives Matter. And then right after that, Asian hate.
Stop Asian hate,
right? It was Asian people was rocking with us. And we were like, yeah, what is all these attacks on Asian people? Because we had a former president who were saying things like the Kung flu and the China virus. And there was a narrative by certain news organizations that it was Black people attacking Asian people. Now, were there some? Absolutely. But the statistics don't say that it was that there was a majority of Black people attacking Asian people. That's not the case. There were Asian attacks.
We can't act like we can't dismiss.
No, we can't. It was some stuff out there.
There were Black people.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there was
attacking Asian people at this time.
The point I'm trying to make is everybody was attacking Asian people at the time, and it wasn't just here in America. It was across the world. Because that was the narrative that the coronavirus was China's fault. So back to what you were saying. Yes, it was that correlation. I keep saying correlation, but it's coalition. The coalition, not correlation. The coalition between Black and Asian people for BLM and Stop Asian Hate.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, like I said, our relationship is nuanced. I think a way forward is recognizing like we said, the ways in which white supremacy has impacted Black and Asian communities in very different ways, but nonetheless detrimental ways.
Exactly.
There have been, obviously, Black people's relationship with white supremacy and Asian folks' relationship and Latino folks and everybody and indigenous folks' relationships with white supremacy is all, it's been different.
It's all been different.
And it's all been different. Getting into these conversations about ranking.
We can't do it.
Don't bother.
Yeah, can't do it.
Don't bother. It's all bad.
It's all bad.
It's all bad. Don't bother.
I had to work. Think of it like this. And this might be a bad analogy, but I think it's fitting. If you come from a household that has you have multiple siblings, y'all all have different experiences with your parents.
Yeah. You all had different parents.
Right.
I heard a therapist talk about that. No two siblings or no group of siblings has had the same.
Even
parents.
twins, they have different parents.
Even twins, because your parents have their own personal relationships with you.
Mm-hmm.
So my personal relationship with mom and dad is different from your relationship.
Oh, hell yeah, it is.
Dad. So we didn't have the same parents growing up, even though we grew up in the same household. But that's besides the point.
We getting off topic.
In addition to these ideas of like coalition building and solidarity, I think we also need to reckon with, in the Black community, anti-Asian sentiment,
Mm-hmm.
and within the Asian community, anti-Blackness. There's a need to address that proximity to whiteness and the prioritization of assimilation into a white supremacist ecosystem, buying into that, what we talked about earlier, the model minority mythos, right, has placed some Asian communities, and again, I gotta be clear, this is not one of those situations where I'm like, not all. No, you gotta really say some Asian communities, because like I said, some of them are dark skinned.
Right.
And they don't get the same benefits.
No, they do not.
Okay. And they actually suffer from anti-Blackness within the Asian community themselves, being a part of the Asian community. But that some of these communities, it does place them in a position of privilege that's not available to Black people. And that creates animosity on both sides, right? But we have to continue to tell ourselves, where is the root cause? Who is benefiting from this discord and from this narrative of tension, right? Who's benefiting from that? And that Black folks are not blameless, that we have to understand that there are some of us who have bought into that nationalist rhetoric that others Asian communities and cast them as perpetual foreigners. And that has translated into real violence and threat to Asian lives. So it's a very, like I said, it's nuanced. But I definitely think that we're moving towards more solidarity and within our communities by pushing ourselves to have these kind of uncomfortable conversations. And the more that we coalesce against white supremacy, the more we recognize that we have a common goal in this country, the better we are for it.
Okay. Time to bring a little levity to the show.
You always say that, and then if we're not funny, you've just set us up for failure.
No, I said levity. I didn't say humor.
I'm gonna need you to look up the definition of levity.
I don't think levity means humor. It means to lighten the mood. We were talking.
Okay, I mean,
yeah, exactly. We were talking.
Levity literally means humor or frivolity.
What does frivolity mean?
Especially the treatment of a serious matter with humor or in a manner lacking due respect. There's also
okay.
that,
So
but
yes, we about to lack some due. We about to lack some due respect now. Going back to when we was kids, to me, and we've gone on as a family from kids to adulthood. We've gone to Belize, Cozumel, Puerto Rico. Oh no, wait a minute. I didn't go with y'all to Puerto Rico. Never mind. I went to Puerto Rico on my own.
I've never been to Puerto
Okay,
Rico.
so not Puerto Rico. The Cayman Islands, Jamaica, all
up in the Caribbean.
All up in the Caribbean and various places in Mexico. Though I've never been to Cabo.
I've never been to Cabo, Cancun.
Yeah, I've never been to any of those places. But to me, all those places were fun. But nothing goes back to going to the Holiday Inn.
That Holiday Inn, baby. That same Holiday Inn.
Getting some McDonald's.
In Central Virginia.
Me, you, and Adam in one bed, mom and dad in the other bed, one TV, whatever dad wanted to watch is what we watching, but we didn't care because the next day we're going to either King's Dominion or Water Country USA. Now, for people that don't know what King's Dominion or Water Country USA are, Water Country USA is water park. It's a water park. All right. King's Dominion.
Here's what you need to understand. It's not just a water park because, you have amusement parks that have water parks in them. It's not the same. Water Country USA is specifically and only dedicated to water. If you haven't been, you can't. I can't.
I think it's still open. I wouldn't go.
Is it?
I would not go.
I would, because they're completely dedicated to water.
No, I wouldn't go.
I wouldn't go to a water park. Water Country USA, Virginia's largest family water park. It is still open.
That's right. And King's Dominion created their little water park. And for people that don't know what King's Dominion is, it's a roller coaster amusement park. If you're in the Midwest, Six Flags. If you're on the West Coast, I don't know what the equivalent is to West Coast.
What do they have in the West Coast?
I don't know. I'm sure they have something.
Disneyland.
I'm sure somebody from the West Coast would be like, man, we got this. You don't know about this? No, we do not know about this.
You don't know about Samson Family Fun Center? No.
That sounds like a Sprint commercial.
Right.
But to me, there was not, oh my goodness, those summer vacations, and mom and dad were like, we were poor. We didn't have that much money. Look, let me tell you something. That McDonald's, that Holiday Inn, and that King's Dominion and Water Country USA, when they pulled their money together and that was our summer vacation, that was always the best to me.
I think, I'm not 100%, but when we were younger, King's Dominion had a partnership maybe with Nickelodeon or because it had those themed rides.
I don't remember.
And then it also, I don't remember what film company it was, but it had like a Wayne's World ride, and it had different rides that were connected to movies or shows and stuff. I don't know if it was, it's not like Universal Studios, right. But it did have little, timely things like that. Of course, it's the 90s. Wayne's World was timely for us. And it was funny. Every year, mom and dad asked us where we wanted to go. And we always said the same thing, King's Dominion and Water Country. And the reason we said it is because we didn't know any other.
No, that's not true.
I don't know why they asked.
They took us to one other place, and we said we don't never want to go there again.
They tried it. And that's Busch Gardens. And it just wasn't fun. It just wasn't fun.
One of my friends swears up and down about Busch Gardens, and I'm like, look.
No.
Forget a Busch Gardens. I don't want no Busch Gardens. King's Dominion.
No. If I am not getting stuck on top of the Grizzly roller coaster at King's Dominion,
which is a death trap.
It is a death trap. It's an old all wood roller coaster. You will get stuck at the top of the hill. I have gotten stuck up there countless times.
The last time I went to King's Dominion, it was 2003 or 4, Because I took a girl there.
Last time I went was 2003.
Okay.
It was Black College Week.
Oh Lord
It was
Jesus.
my freshman year of college, and it was at King's Dominion. And we went to King's Dominion. I wore an all white velour Rockaware tracksuit.
Talk about the 2000s.
Well, listen, and you could not tell me a damn thing. I got it from Downtown Locker Room in DC, and you could not tell me a damn thing.
Good Lord. Oh my goodness. But I did get stuck. There was, they had the elevator where you're sitting in a seat, your feet are dangling, and they take you 2,000 feet into space. And then they drop you. Well,
into the stratosphere.
Right. The one time that in 2003 when I went, we was going up there, and then it just at the top, you're dangling. You're at the moon, just looking down on Earth, not Earth. And you're like, all right, when they gonna drop us? And we were stuck up there for a good 10, 15 minutes. People was crying. I was technically on a date. So I was scared as hell, but I held it tight because I didn't want her to know that I was a punk and I was scared. But I wanted to cry too. I'm afraid of heights, and your feet just dangling. And I'm like, yo, is this it? Is this how I go out today? And that was all a part of the fun at King's Dominion. You might die.
I don't know if it's just notorious for you gonna get stuck on a ride, but I know pretty much every time I went to King's Dominion, I got stuck on a ride.
But I wouldn't take back those trips for any. So much fun. Dad just Dad getting mad at us for being rowdy when it's time to go to bed, and we just sitting there playing and laughing and chuckling in the bed.
And you know what I think about is, now that I'm an adult and now that I work in corporate America, he worked all year for that vacation time. And he had to spend it with our asses. And I just feel like when they got to water country and mom and dad just let us go.
And they just got on that lazy river.
And they got in the lazy river and they just floated for the entire day.
That's all they did.
And they would get out, get something to eat. They get back in that lazy river. And we were not to bother them. They said, you have this whole park. We don't care that you're small children.
You might drown.
Don't get
but don't bother us.
Don't drown. Don't die. Go. Just go.
Didn't somebody almost die in the wave pool?
I'm sure. We were not strong swimmers, any of us.
I was. I don't know about you, but I
don't think you were.
No, I was a good swimmer.
I think you were just tall. I think 4 feet of water didn't bother you.
But mom and dad will watch this. Dad eventually, mom will watch it. If she's not watching it right now live, she'll be watching it tomorrow when the show release. From the bottom of my heart, the cruises were fantastic. But thank you for sacrificing your vacations to take us to King's Dominion and Water Country, USA. You don't want to say thank you too?
I'm trying to think if that's my favorite. It definitely wasn't cruises.
No, you hated the cruises.
I do get cabin fever. I get cabin fever, so it wasn't the cruises.
You like the gambling, though.
I mean, I do like gambling a lot. Yeah, honestly, it's not even where they took us. It was just the fact that we got to go on vacations, because I do have friends that never went on vacations because their parents didn't have vacation time.
Right.
They didn't work jobs that offered that. I just shout out to our parents, because I can't imagine. I'm an adult. You get 2 weeks a year, boy, and that's it. And to have to spend it with 3 rowdy children. Oh, wow. What a nightmare. So I just thank you. I thank you for that. I thank you for that, and for mostly keeping your cool on these vacations. I am sorry that I acted like a brat when y'all would do little stuff for yourselves and we couldn't, y'all would go get a caricature drawing of you and we didn't get there, you would, have a little snack or something and we didn't get some. That's fine. Honestly, I'm sorry if I acted like a brat during those months.
Sure enough
y'all
did.
go have y'all little time, because wow, what a nightmare. What a nightmare.
Oh my goodness. Thank you.
Can't imagine it.
Thank you, Mom and Dad. Well, Jay, it's that time of the episode where I'd have my sign off. You've had another week.
Yeah.
Where we at with it?
This is going to be the sign off for the rest of this month. Happy Black History Month.
Hey, look, I ain't mad about that. Happy Black History Month, the shortest month of the year. They gave us the shortest month of the year, but we're going to make the most out of it.
It used to be a week and now it's a month. Shout out to you, Carter G. Woodson.
Hey, look, go out there and watch Eyes on the Prize. Go out there and watch Rosewood. Go out there and watch black movies just not on Tubi. But
for the love of God,
not Tubi. But on that note, I'm a holla.
Thank you for listening to Unsolicited Perspectives with Bruce Anthony. Please subscribe, like, comment, share, and donate. Donations help us keep giving you this free content each and every week. Until next time,
Freedom. Freedom over fame. Freedom over fame. The cycle stays the same. Freedom over fame. Freedom over fame. Freedom over fame. The cycle stays the same.